Hello, I hope you can hear me well. I would like to welcome everyone at our last session of this symposium. It's session number 6. I'm really happy that you are still in attendance, and so many of you. I am also counting on the people online to be joining us here and in the future as well, because I imagine that the recordings will be on our website. This session is devoted to new technologies with particular focus on AI. We have 5 experts in this session whom we've invited, 2 of whom are from abroad. And we will start with the presentation of Ms. Aleksandra Sztuder. She will be talking about quality indicators in cancer care and Polish experiences. She will be connecting online. She is the representative of the Lower Silesia Oncology and Hematology Center. You are free to take the floor. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have some small technical issues. At this point, we'd like to invite Aleksandra Sztuder. She is the representative of Wrocław Hospital, where she's the representative for cancer care issues. She will be presenting the implementation of quality indicators in cancer care in that hospital, and we are looking forward to your presentation so that we know more about this topic. It seems we have to test our patience because we are still working on a good connection. Together with us, we also have 2 foreign guests, Iñaki Gutiérrez-Ibarluzea. This is the huge star of global HTA. He used to be the chief of HTA, so the largest international organization dealing with HTA. It will be interesting to listen to his presentation. Currently, he sits on the council dealing with joint clinical assessment. So the topic we've mentioned in detail yesterday, this is something which will be quite important for a lot of us dealing with HTA regarding both drug and first drug technologies in cancer care, then in orphan drugs, and after that all health technologies. So he might also talk to us about that. Now the question, do we have a good connection? It seems we do, so the floor is yours. I'm afraid the connection is not good. It is not audible. We'll be talking about the introduction of the pilot project of the National Cancer Network, but also I will talk about various international projects which we had the pleasure of participating in. As you can see, these are the quality fostering initiatives which we participated in, starting in 2015. That's the DILO card since 2015. Between 2019 and 2023, the pilot project for the National Cancer Network, the IPEC project between 2019 and 2021, which which resulted in a successful certification. The ACIBCN project, so the European Commission Initiative on Breast Cancer, was finalized in 2022. Our final audit was successful as well, and the CRANE project, which was also a success, and we were also certified with this regard in the area of treating lung cancer. Let me tell you that all those European projects, both IPAC and CRANE, are projects which are based on European certification of cancer centers, which has been operating for several decades in the area of Western European countries. What is of particular importance to us oncologists and organizers of healthcare is that our actions are associated with the highest possible quality. We hope that this DELO card for cancer patients, we have a qualitative pathway of care, and whether it's the case can be measured only with good indicators. I will not be presenting the main aspects of the assumptions of the IPAC projects and other projects, but what I want to tell you that those programs, the IPAC, for example, it was convergent with the national pilot program. That was all based on qualitative indicators. They were supposed to tell us whether we are meeting the European standards. We tried to test the possibilities of collecting qualitative indices for several different centers in the region. The number of participating service providers varied between specific regions. A few words about the pilot project of the National Cancer Network. I joined this pilot project after it has already been initiated, but the assumptions behind this pilot program was similar to the European initiatives. So this policy for monitoring quality, this is actually a list of general indicators and more in-depth indicators. Obviously, I cannot quote all of them, but I can refer to a few of them, selected ones. These are indicators, for example, for the prostate cancer and for colon cancer. You can see a few examples. For example, the percentage of patients with rectal cancer in whom pre-surgical radiotherapy was applied. And in the case of prostate cancer, for example, the percentage of positive histopathological results in marginal testing post-surgery. This type of specific indicators were applied to all healthcare facilities, and we wanted it to apply to all patients. As mentioned at the beginning of the pilot program, we had this warehouse of data, so a system, an online system which would collect data from different sources, from the ICT systems of hospitals and other institutions. We also had the system which allowed for an exchange of data between facilities. To the right-hand side, you can see 35 different charts. These were indicator charts. Each indicator had a specific chart which was filled out and signed by the person who developed it. A lot of those indicators were not innovative. They were simply taken from international certification programs. And here you can see more examples of how the ICT system works. Medstream was our data warehouse. We could create charts and tables. Each hospital, each service provider could enter the system and review those indicators. This is how this looked in practice. This is the visualization. You can browse by diagnosis, by ICD codes. You can also browse by, for example, specific hospitals. Because I also participated in a few lectures which discussed the National Cancer Network, we wanted to promote our approach, the approach of my facility, to whether we can somehow verify those qualitative indices. Some of them had to be rejected because it was impossible to collect the data. It was simply not feasible. When trying to evaluate the project as a whole, we asked ourselves a few questions. Is it possible to compare different healthcare facilities between one another? Is benchmarking possible? It seems easy, but actually it's not. Is it possible to monitor the patient pathway? Is it possible to compare this with international standards? And is it possible to provide equal opportunities for patients? So ensure equal access to high quality care. This is a question we heard most often. We were asked whether the pilot project helped the situation, whether it improved it. Benchmarking, is it possible? On the example of lung cancer. It is possible, but we have to keep in mind that we before were not collecting the data on advancement stages of the disease of the patients. I will show you what ideas we had and our proposals that were accepted by relevant institutions. I'm afraid there are some technical issues. Who treat patients without an advanced stage of the disease. Then we have failure of treatment, and we also treat differently initial diagnosis. What you can see on this slide is our idea, which was approved by experts. So we just don't need just standardized indices, but we also need to use prefixes. The relevant prefixes which indicate the advanced stage of the patients, because specific patients there are specific cases which must be treated differently. So we not only need to report on the advanced stage at the beginning, at baseline, but we have to do it on several occasions during the patient's pathway. Here you can see the percentage of patients in stage 3 or 4 of lung cancer. This is of pivotal importance for specific healthcare facilities, whether the facilities should be ready for very advanced patients. In some cases, it was 70% of patients were very advanced, and in other, only 40% were in the most advanced stages. This impacts the decisions that need to be made by the hospitals, by the cancer centers. They, for example, need to have more. They need to have more surgical teams ready. Also, measurements regarding breast cancers. We had this qualitative indicator regarding chemotherapy administered in inpatient settings, and now we know what percentage of facilities does this in inpatient settings. In one center that was 6%. And in other facilities, it was, for example, only 0.5%, which means that it is possible to refrain from hospitalizing a patient, and this shows that outpatient care is possible. Now we have an indicator of where molecular and genetic testing was performed. A lot is being said about access to cutting-edge technologies in treatment, but I wanted to show you the discrepancies and wanted to show you that we could make a comparison between specific voivodeships. In general, all voivodeships performed quite well with regard to this indicator, so access to relevant diagnostic and treatment modern technologies. Another indicator, the percentage of patients with a tumor of up to 3 centimeters who were subjected to breast-saving surgeries instead of a mastectomy. We are experiencing connection difficulties as well. The speaker is not audible. And then it is possible to meet such an international standard. Is it possible to make comparisons with international standards? It is possible, but it is not easy. I wanted to show it to you on the example of colon cancer. This is a good indicator. For example, mortality within 30 days following surgery. As you can see, the values in Dolnośląskie Cancer Center, but also in other facilities, these rates were very low. So we could use this data when talking to the patient. We could tell them that mortality rates are below 1%. This is something I could use when talking with patients, and we could monitor this. We did not have two categories for stable patients and urgent cases. This division has been introduced in international standards. We did not opt for this division. Evaluation of the indices usually takes the form of such a table. Those who do not meet the standards are highlighted in red. We prepared a similar report, and we saw that indeed some indicators we've managed to be successful. That's the green fields, and the red fields are where we were not successful. This was a similar slide. As you could see, the data was available in the form of tables, but it is also available in the form of graphs. Is it possible to measure, to make equal access to treatment on the example of ovarian cancer? As we collect this data, we can see that the target values are in the end achieved, but before we learn how to collect this data, it takes some time. We have to keep in mind that there is this learning curve. We need some time to get a grasp of it. Is the situation better? It's always the case that some indicators perform better, and some of them deteriorate depending on which center we are talking about. So here we're talking about access to top-notch technologies, to non-invasive therapies. Here, the access has significantly improved. Now, a few words about the IPAC project I mentioned. This was also related to qualitative indicators. It regarded the cancer care center, including lung cancer and pancreatic cancer. What the auditors from the EU taught us is that we have to differentiate between newly diagnosed cases and relapses. So the idea of primary cases, something which is a new diagnosis, we have to keep them apart and treat them differently to relapses of known cancer patients. We are experiencing technical issues. I don't know if you can see subsequent slides. Did we manage to meet the indicators to receive international certification? As you can see, in 2020, when we getting the certification, that we were meeting 50%, and over 80% was met once we did get the accreditation. So there was significant improvement. During the certification process, we also used the program for monitoring quality, which was created for the purpose of the pilot program of the National Cancer Network. It's not just we declared the values of the indicators, they were verified on 2 occasions, in the pre-audit and in the post-audit. We had the visit of 5 auditors from the EU and there were 5 experts from abroad auditing and 1 person from Poland. The indicators were marked at the patient pathway in a structured way. We developed this pathway with the Dresden Technical University. This pathway seems to be very complex, but it helps us find the right place for all indicators at the patient's pathway. Obviously, for the purpose of certification, we digitized a lot of forms which used to be there in paper form. This allowed for automation of data collection. And now the quality meetings, this is where we would brainstorm on which solutions to introduce in our hospital to ensure that specific indicators can be improved. These are the certificates which we've received in the IPAC project. And let me tell you that we had the pleasure of participating in a very radiotherapy-focused project. This regarded collecting indicators only for radiotherapy efforts. We were the only center from Poland to participate, and I hope that it will be possible to collect indicators specifically for radiotherapy. So benchmarking is really important in this area. Here you can see I had the pleasure of taking part in a contest where our center was awarded for our engagement in the pilot project, and where we also presented our qualitative indicators, also before the German Cancer Society, where we exchanged our experiences on qualitative measures. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Do we have any questions so that maybe we can ask any questions to Aleksandra? Let's use the fact that she's still connected and we can ask questions if any have arisen. Magda Włodysiuk, I have a question. Could you please tell me what are the chances for the indicators to become national indicators and so that they can be implemented nationwide? I think the key is that we do it without too much haste. We should choose specific sections. We could start with choosing the most general indicators. Obviously, we would like to know everything at once. We'd like to know specific information, to have specific information as well, but we shouldn't be too hasty. Let's start with, for example, checking whether we have the right foundations. If we start with the more simple indicators, I think that after a few years, we will have the necessary data, but we shouldn't expect results in 1 or 2 years, because that wasn't the case of Western European countries. It took them 5 years so that the right results were yielded, so that the benchmarking data was available. It takes time. I have one more question. Is there more detailed data regarding medicine, personalized medicine, for example, regarding specific mutations that are sometimes present in lung cancer patients or breast cancer patients? Can we focus on such subgroups of patients so that in such subgroups of patients we can compare indicators? This is one of the elements of the histopathological studies. So yes, we can extract more detailed data. I think that whether genetic testing was performed and molecular testing was performed is something we should definitely be collecting. Thank you for connecting, for the successful presentation. And now we would like to move on to the next presentation. It will be again with a speaker who will connect online. Iñaki Gutiérrez-Ibarluzea will be connecting online from the Basque country, so the south of Spain. He is a well-recognized member of the HTA and EBM community. He used to be the head of HTA. Currently, he is the head of innovations for the Basque country government. So he will share his experiences and his thoughts on the impact of machine learning on HTA and EBM, so the trends which we are currently very invested in and which we know will transform the future of what we do and how we handle our data, how we handle access to data, and everything that's connected to this. Iñaki, the floor is yours.
We cannot hear you.
Let's try now.
Yes, we can hear you right now.
Okay, I will share my screen. Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me, and it is not well. I would have loved to be with you on site, but the circumstances, especially in the last month, in which I've changed my job, and also I'm much more attuned to be in the Basque region. So and it has been impossible to be there in Krakow. But it was a pleasure always that I've been in Krakow there. So what I'm going to talk today is about the use of machine learning and how it impacts on health technology assessment, and also how it can impact on also on the use of real-world evidence and the use of real-world data for decision making. So first of all, I wanted to, I don't know if I can move by myself yeah. So some insights. Those are from Harvey Finnegar. Harvey Finnegar was the director of the Institute of Medicine in the United States, and I think he was quite knowledgeable about the issues that are and the aspects that were related to healthcare systems, and also they are currently also. They're currently part of the things that we have to face when we are talking about the healthcare systems. Well, Albert Finnegar said, for example, the way we make decisions has not fundamentally changed. What has changed are the capacities, the resources, and the technologies that enter into the process. And among those, in the last years, we are facing things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and other factors that also affect not just the way that we attempt to make decisions, but also the capacity that we have in terms of gathering information and the resources and the technologies that we have in terms of deciding and also making things feasible. The second thing that he said, and I think it is also very relevant, it is related to the healthcare today is also more complex, more demanding, and more challenging for patients, clinicians, and policymakers. And nowadays, one of the things that is important and why most of the healthcare systems are on crisis, it is related to the attempt that we have related to healthcare. And we are nowadays accustomed to receive healthcare, and we are demanding healthcare in a faster way that we were accustomed before. So it is, and that's why we have increased, for example, the waiting list and many other things, and there are many concerns by patients in terms of reaching to the healthcare system. The third thing that he was saying, so it was related to the idea of technology, and he was saying the idea of technology is very simple. It is the idea of knowledge applied to a purpose. But in healthcare, we draw on a lot of knowledge, and we have many, many different purposes. And the question for us always in healthcare is, are we using that knowledge in a way that truly advances health? And this is a question that also we need to debate today with the new technologies and how they are impacting our healthcare systems right now. I don't think I can move, or perhaps so, I don't know. Yeah. So I will start with some principles. First of all, it is one principle that was set by the 70s by one of the most prominent statistician, and also he was one of the people that work hard in quality, and he has been known as being part of the success of Japan in the 80s and 90s. And what he said, and it was Edwards Deming, what he said was, without data, you are just another person with an opinion. But also we need to could use the quote from Milo Jones and Philip Silverson that they were saying, without an opinion, you are just another person with data. And I don't think they are not those two statements, they are not conflicting in principle. Why? Because on the one side, if we don't have data, in principle, we cannot provide evidence, and that won't be informative. So it will be our opinion. So anyone's opinion, it is important. What we have is just data. So it is important not just to have data, but also to make the correct questions and also try to gather and interpret the correct answers. So facts and data. So it is true that right now we have more and more facts and more data. And we can see that that data is everywhere. This is something that has changed dramatically, and I would say in the last 20 to 25 years. And it is crystal clear that any time that we spend on the internet, the sites that we visit and the services that we use accumulate an enormous amount of data on our behavior and our preferences, and that is also related to how we relate also in the healthcare systems. The next one, it is the how we interpret those data, and one of the things that we need to think about it is that having data without creative interpretation is not only inefficient, but also it is useless. And knowing what the data means and what the implications are for the organizations is in principle what matters. So it is not just, and this is a big debate nowadays in the healthcare systems, and especially related to which is the data that we need to gather on the one side, and on the other side, how we are interpreting those data in terms of advancing in our organizations and in our case in the healthcare systems. So the what and the why. So this up to now, the main focus on data and data use were related to data collection and also to maintaining the rigor of the method and ensuring data accuracy. And one of the main focus was on data curation. So this, but it's true that we were forgetting why the data has been collected in the first place, and we were not thinking about why we need to collect that, which the purpose is, and many of the things that we have even imposed to the healthcare providers and the health professionals have been related to collecting data that in principle it is not used in terms of making further decisions. And that way of collecting the data, it is annoying on the one side the health professionals, and also it is increasing the burden that they are suffering in terms of relating to the system. So they are talking to themselves saying, why should I collect those data, and how that is impacting in reality my way of working. Furthermore, if we go to what we call real-world data and real-world evidence, I'm not going to invent the wheel, and I'm referring to some well-established definitions. On the one side, real-world data, it is observational or administrative data that provides information on the routine delivery of healthcare and the health status of the target population. And real-world evidence, it is the evidence derived from the analysis of real-world data. We can refer to what we have done in healthcare system for so many years, and we can say that real-world data could be registries that we were using. For example, the registry of mortality, the registry of cancer, the registry of data related to costs in the systems, and many other things. So we were accustomed for many years to collect those type of data. I think the challenge right now, and also the things that we are doing different, it is that nowadays we are trying to use those data in terms of making decisions and combining those data also with some clinical data that are available. But one of the questions that we need to observe, it is to which extent those data that we are collecting, first of all, they are sufficiently accurate and they have sufficient internal validity on the one side, and on the other side, to which extent they are useful in terms of making decisions in some way. So, in principle, nothing has changed. So, what can the big debate right now? It is real world data, big data, but one of the things it is important. It is what kind of data do decision makers need to make decisions, and I think it is the most important thing. And we are not starting from the very beginning. So the first thing, as I'm used to say, first things first. So the first things are the questions. The second should be data required to answer those questions, and then there is another need and a third step in terms of which is the interpretation of the results that we are obtaining with the data required in terms of making those decisions. So it is which is at the end of the day, which is the value of those results that we are obtaining. So it is how to generate this fit for purpose evidence in general. So how that is that applicable to specifically health technology? It is true that health technology, for most of us that we are not English speakers or English native speakers, it is a little bit confusing. In most of the languages, technology is related to something that semantically could be related to a gadget. So something that is touchable, that we can have on our hands. But if we go to the definition of technology by English native speakers, and I'm using the definition from John Kenneth Galbraith, and health technology is the systematic application of scientific and other knowledge to solve practical problems. So it is it is how to get answers in terms of producing better results on the questions that we have as systems, and that is also applicable to the healthcare system. And when we are talking about technologies applied to health, we are talking about equipment, medical devices, medicines, and medical and surgical procedures used in diagnosis, in prevention, in treatment and rehabilitation, together with the administrative systems required to implement them. So it is quite broad. So those are the answers that we are using in terms of answering the questions that we have in healthcare systems. Furthermore, if we look at how that impacts the healthcare systems as a whole, and there is always the eternal debate between what is innovation and how that can be implemented in the healthcare systems. So this innovation we can say that is something that responds to unmet needs by employing new ways of thinking and working with a special focus on the needs of vulnerable population. I'm using the definition from WHO innovation group. And also they were also saying that health innovation adds value in the form of improved efficiency, effectiveness, quality, safety, and or affordability. So they were using the group of experts around innovation in WHO. They were saying that innovation is not just new. It is something that also adds value in the form of efficiency. So this in terms of the balance between cost and effects. In terms of just effects, like effectiveness, in terms of quality, so improving the quality of the services that we are providing, in terms of safety, and in terms of affordability by the systems. So the term innovation is quite related to the HTA definition. The last definition that we have, it is that HTA is a multidisciplinary process that uses explicit methods to determine the value of a health technology at different points in its life cycle. And the purpose is to inform decision making in order to promote an equitable, efficient, and high quality health system. So it is quite related to innovation. So it is we cannot say that we are not introducing innovation without evaluating that in terms of those features that I'm already defining. So what next? So it is, can we make decisions? And this is part of the questions that were made in the past, and especially those that we have been working in evidence-based medicine. One of the things, and we were rooted in the paradigm of the need to demonstrate causality on the basis of randomized controlled trials. And one of the challenges was, can we make decisions with real-world evidence? Well, in reality, this is something that was discussed in the Global Policy Forum for Health Technology Assessment International. In reality, we are doing, because in most of the cases, there is lack of external validity of most of the randomized controlled trials that we are using in terms of demonstrating evidence. And for example, in most of the cases on medical devices and diagnostics and so on, there are no randomized controlled trials that respond to the questions that we are having, or there is no robust designs to answer most of the clinical questions that we could have. So it is, and also the questions that we have are related also in most cases to context. So this real world evidence, it is of utmost importance. And how that relates with the next one, that is the data. So is what is needed, and this is some of the questions that I've made before. So it is, what is the data that is needed? First of all, it is enough data. So it is good, reliable, and valid, and not more and no less than needed. So it is, because otherwise we create a burden to those that are collecting the data, and especially quite a high burden, and also it could be quite unknowledgeable to them because we are forcing them to collect data that finally is not used for decision making. And also mainly statistical data, less personal data, including genomic information. As we can see, in most of the cases, the main response and the data that is important to gather, it is those things that are not only related to the healthcare systems, but also that they are related to social and environmental factors. So the social determinants of health and environmental factors, also individual behavior and genetics, also in terms of, and healthcare system. In reality, it is very low in terms of determining which the results that we are providing and the responsibility of how those results are achieved. They are not mainly related to the healthcare system, but all those other factors that sometimes we are not collecting or even we are not including in our decisions. So the hurdles to implement the use of data, first of all, it is the access limitations even in publicly funded knowledge, uncontrolled access and use of data, or ignoring the ownership of personal data, or misusing business power to squeeze people institutions. So that is one of the problems that we are facing so far. But apart from that, another thing that is important, it is that there are other hurdles like systems prepared to collect administrative and management data in principle. So our systems are prepared to collect administrative and management data, but no data on results is normally structured, or they are not even collected. And not all the outcomes of interest are recorded. And especially when we are trying to demonstrate values, and I was saying before, it is important to say that that first of all, we need to configure our systems in terms of collecting the data and the outcomes of interest that need to be recorded. And sometimes, well, and in most of the occasions, I wouldn't say that they are recorded or they are collected. And furthermore, so should we use great data, enough data? This is something that is from the Institute of Medicine that I've said before. There is a report that was telling us what is the impact of using real world evidence on medical product development and how that is impacting in the decisions that we are making. The report of the Institute of Medicine was saying, yes, we have to. In principle, we have to collect real world evidence in terms of learning, in terms of improving the way that we are doing, in terms to be able to handle complexity, in terms to be able to treat a patient, in terms to be able to protect population, and also in a controlled environment for the benefit of the population and a person by protecting people, science, and business against misuse. And that was related also to collecting data, and also being aware of every misuse is raising hurdles and avoiding improvements in this sense. And on the other side, that is terrific in terms of not providing the correct decisions and providing the correct evidence. In fact, the importance of real-world evidence in health technology assessment, it is increasing over time, because innovative tools for collecting and recording information and for generating and synthesizing evidence and from a wide variety of settings in the real world, and oftentimes even in real time. And that's why, for example, even the Health Technology Assessment International community have created an interest group on real-world evidence and artificial intelligence, because some of those things are already impacting our healthcare systems. And what is more, stakeholders have a better understanding of how access to innovative technologies can be facilitated and even accelerated by those new tools that we have. And they are willing and even eager to consider the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence technologies to gain the advantage of more comprehensive evidence to inform decision making. But what in principle could be an advance and also can improve the way that we approach to decision making, it is not that easy. And I will put some examples on that. So once again, we need to be back to making the correct question. So the what, the when, the how, and by whom. So it is from the principles that we have said, if we don't have data, there is no evidence in terms of making decision. But without purpose, data collection makes no sense. And on the other side, we need to say that one of the challenges that we have with using those new tools, it is that no good data could lead to no good conclusions. However, and this is something of our society that we are trying to do easygoing. So this I would call the lazy ones, that try to find fast solutions, but not perhaps the correct solutions. So the question would be: do we provide evidence when data are not available? And one of the things that we are learning, the ones that we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning, it is that especially the generative artificial intelligence, what is producing it is that they are accustomed to give an answer, even in those cases in which evidence or data are not available, and that creates something that has been called hallucination. So it is not all the things that are obtained from generative artificial intelligence are related to data. And one of the problems it is that we don't know how those responses are produced. Perhaps some technology developers they know, but those that we are the users, we don't know how those responses are obtained, and which are the mechanisms behind, and that could be a big problem. Use cases in which we can do automative activities, and in which, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning could be used. For example, in the case of HTA, it can be used in filtration of studies, and there are clear examples on how to do in a faster way when we are doing, for example, a systematic review, and we need to we have thousands or tons, as I'm used to say, tons of articles, and we need to filtrate because we need to gather in all those that are in principle providing us the information that we need in terms of making decisions. Or it has been used also in the identification of other studies that have not primarily been identified by the first search. Or also we have seen that is tremendously valid, for example, in the case of data extraction or evidence synthesis. But once again, once we have decided which is the information that we are going to include. So it is crystal clear that automated activities makes our life easier. And for example, in evidence synthesis or in living evidence, so it is when we have already the questions, when we have identified the studies, when we have defined the exclusion and inclusion criteria, and so on. Also, automated activities that could be provided by artificial intelligence and machine learning could be useful in terms of, for example, updating the evidence in a living evidence manner. And otherwise, it could be very, very burdensome for the HTA groups. But we don't need to bear in mind that there are moments in which the artificial intelligence and other automated, at least up to now, makes no sense. For example, in scoping, so I don't think that when we are doing a scoping and when we are going to try to reach to make the right questions, in which we need to involve clinicians, we need to involve managers, we need to involve patients. I don't think it is something that can be automated. Or also in defining inclusion and exclusion criteria that needs to be also discussed. Perhaps automated activities could help us in terms of making suggestions, but not in the definition of which are the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Or also, I don't think it is automatic activities could be also used in critical appraisal or in data interpretation. This is something that needs to continue being human, or also in deliberative processes in terms of providing the right questions, or also in decision making, despite that in some healthcare systems we are starting to do so. Furthermore, in how to apply that in the HTA in the HTA community, and I was put in the long and winding road. So it is one famous song from the Beatles. So it is, we don't need to go on the fastest solution, on the cheapest solution, and what seems to be smartest and what seems to be more innovative. In theory, as I was saying, we need to provide that those things that we are using in principle, they are better than the common things that we are doing, and we are not in need to follow what is technologically fascinating. And I've seen some countries that are fascinated by the technology, and they are even saying that we don't need HTA agencies or HTA doers anymore, because we are going to solve that with artificial intelligence. And in reality, if we go to what the activity of HTA is, it cannot be replaced in all the cases. But it's true that it can help us in making our life easier. So main challenges when using machine learning and artificial intelligence and its use in precision data for HTA. First of all, we need to bear in mind that is a black box. So we don't know where the data is coming and how it is processed, and finally which the final I would say result on how it is obtained. Also in the selection of evidence, so the data sources and the filtration needs still perhaps to be with some human touch. Also with interpretation. Also, bear in mind which are the problems with hallucination. Also, the balance between internal validity and external validity, and this is something that needs to be also discussed. So, yes, mainly in favor of using new technologies, but with the principle of cautiousness that is related to which the difference are with the things that we are promoting, and which are the I would say which are the pros and the cons, as we were saying in the definition, the previous definition of health technology assessment. The health technology assessment is trying to provide information about the intended consequences and the unintended consequences of using the technology. And in this sense, I think it is tremendously important to bear in mind which are the pros of using those new tools and which are the cons of using those tools, and obviously being critical on how to use those automated things. And thank you very much for inviting me once again, and I hope that I can answer some of the questions that you can make there.
Thank you, Iñaki, for your presentation. Very interesting. Any questions from the floor?
Hello. I have one question regarding your presentation. What do you think is the biggest limitation today? Is it like computation power, the limitation of algorithms, not enough data, not enough quality of data to come up with new innovations?
I think it is a combination. So it is not only that first of all, the difference between the healthcare system and in comparison to other systems, it is that, for example, in aeronautics or in automation, there are sensors everywhere, and the quality of the data that those sensors are providing, it is high quality. In the case of healthcare systems, the sources are very diverse. The quality of the data is also diverse. And combining all those data in terms of gathering on the one side and also combining them, it is a challenge. The second thing it is that in comparison to classical statistics, the problem it is that we don't know how the perhaps Anaïs knows much more than I, but it's true that it is still considered a black box. So it is. In the case of pure statistics and combination of variables, it is true that we know where the mistake has been done. In the case of using machine learning and artificial intelligence, it is much more complicated. It is true that that is doable, and also we have the problem of interpreting. I think still we need the human touch in interpreting the information, and also in providing the right questions to be answered. And I think we need to do an extra effort on having people that can accumulate and can define the right questions that we need to do, and they are important. And I don't think we are doing well right now, because in most occasions the questions that we are doing in principle in healthcare systems are related to processes and structure. So it is the debate right now in Europe. It is related to the lack of professionals, the waiting list, and many other things, and not focusing on the most important things that should be for clinicians, for managers, and for patients, and obviously for policymakers. That is related to results. And we are not collecting in a proper way. We are not collecting in healthcare systems results on health and results on the different pathologies and how they are related to the investment that we are doing in healthcare systems. So I think it is a combination.
Okay, so like assuming that we have high accuracy of data, like in aerospace and defense, and then we have explainable AI, and then it comes down to ask right questions, yes? That That's what I get from your response. Is it right?
And then we will solve the war.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Thank you, Iñaki, for your participation and your insight into our conference. Thank you very much. And right now we move to another speaker, Anaïs González, Iglesias. Fantastyczny tytuł, od fantastyki naukowej do
A great topic, the transformative impact of AI on the assessment of HTA. Anaïs came to us from Spain as well. She is the consultant on health. She has broad experience. She has PhD and she specializes in various aspects related to what we deal with. So, computational physics, economics. She also is dealing with precise medicine. So she will be sharing her experience.
First of all, thank you. I will try to keep the level because talking after Iñaki is really a challenge, I have to say. But the best thing is that he already introduced a lot of the concepts I was going to discuss today. So I will start on who we are, where I'm coming from, because I work for a technology company and there is a lot of uncertainties in how we see healthcare. And usually the people makes a lot of questions when I say I work for Amazon Web Service. So I will start putting that out of the discussion. Second, really understanding obviously in a high level, but what is generative AI? What are the difference, as Iñaki was saying, with the different models that we have been using? Some use cases for healthcare and also for HTA analysis. I will not go in deep in any of the use cases, but I'm more than happy to explain and give you the references offline. It's just that I only have 20 minutes. And the third one, what do you need to take into consideration before going in what I call the generative AI journey? If you have an idea how that, what are the considerations that you need to take from the beginning, what are the challenges, and what will be the problems that you will face? And finally, a little bit Q&A. So from the perspective of who we are, well, I work for Amazon Web Service, that is a technology company that is well known for innovation. Everyone knows what is Amazon.com, and usually the first question I receive is, you work for genomics and precision medicine, you are selling genetic testing in Amazon. No, thank God, that's not my job. Indeed, I work with data analysis after the samples are analyzed. So obviously, we are in healthcare, and we are present in healthcare for a certain reasons. The first one is for the importance of the security of the data. I'm an EU citizen, so I can share with you the worries of who is accessing my data, what these people is doing with my data, and I probably share with you the question of the number of people that is sharing their data, basically to have access to silly applications. Because I try to always give the message that if you are using something and it's free, probably you are paying with your data, in personal or use patterns or whatever. Second is to make this data available and actionable. Third one, to accelerate innovation. And finally, to make this transition to personalized medicine, because if you work especially in oncology or rare diseases, you know how important is sharing data and having, let's say, enough data to make the analysis really, let's say, with enough evidence, sorry. So, and just to clarify, we are not only engineers. Indeed, I'm not an engineer. My background is science. I'm coming from science. We have people that has been in your shoes, that has been in hospitals. Indeed, I spent around 10 years working in hospitals and healthcare providers. That means that we know how to translate between the IT and the healthcare. And this is important, especially for what Iñaki was saying before. Technology is there. There are so many things that you can do, but it's important that you select the best tool. And sometimes the most fashion one is not the best tool. I receive questions every day in how I can use generative AI for genomics or for precision medicine. And sometimes it's that, yeah, you can use it, but it doesn't make any sense for what you need to right now. Maybe that's not the best problem that you need to solve. We should be solving these early problems or data foundations or other stuff. But when something is so new like this, everyone wants to do something. And that's part of the risk that we have. As many companies, we have a mission in the healthcare team of AWS. In our case, is basically enable access and deliverable of personal-centered healthcare. Why? Because every single step you do in your life in the healthcare space produce data and information. I maybe have a small disagree with Iñaki about collecting data. I think the collection of data that you have in the healthcare space, let's say it that way, is always interesting, and it will bring impressive improvement in the future. The reality is we first don't have the capabilities right now to do it. Second, we don't have the capabilities to analyze it. And third, and most important, we don't understand what questions we need to solve. So probably this is not the moment to start collecting all this data, but this data is there and is giving us the patterns of the patients. And this is especially interesting for me when you go for discussion in real world data and the people start saying, because I would like to have access to the patient information on the smartwatch and all the different sensors. And it's like, yeah, we can create a platform that solves that. The question is, how do you will integrate this information in the medical healthcare record? How are you going to analyze all the sleep patterns? Or do you need specific indicators? So is that part that, yes, we can do it, but we should stop and think, is this the best way? Or we need to find a different indicator? And again, for us, the important thing is acceleration, the healthcare transformation, helping in the innovation, because technology usually is more or less linked with innovation. I'm not saying it's the only one, especially coming from science. Helping on the access, helping to improve the access of the healthcare, and obviously helping in the national and regional strategies. So, well, Iñaki was saying about a little bit introduction on the machine learning. Well, the graphics doesn't seem very good, but basically, the number of users we have right now across the world is just impressive. And indeed, this is like the other side of the Iñaki's presentation, because I think his graphic was from generative AI to artificial intelligence, and I did the opposite. And inside, artificial intelligence has been around for quite a long time, at least from the science and let's say, IT perspective. And people sometimes forget it, that this is only different models, and each of these models will have different capabilities and application use cases. Now we are in the last model, let's say, that generative AI, that we need to remember that one of the key aspects is the contextual searching of the information. That's where we can really use generative AI with certain, obviously, it still have hallucinations, but when we want to summarize documents, when we want to identify patterns in different texts, when we want to collect data from different articles, for example. I know it's not sexy, but to be honest, generative AI not necessarily sexy. I mean, the most interesting use cases are very boring, but it solves a lot of problems. We have a use case in a hospital to update automatically the quality process documents, the ICO, the ISO documents. That is a nightmare. I remember being in a hospital. I hate to do that. And now there is a way that you can do it automatically. Always you will have someone that needs to review it at the end. But you spend less time doing something that is really boring. It's a super fashion application of generative AI. Well, I mean, it solves problems. So for me, it's interesting, even if it's not like super sexy. And what I would like for you to take from this session is that it's interesting, yes, it has very specific use cases where we are getting amazing results, yes, but it's not the only technology you can use. And that we need to concentrate in what is the data that we are putting in these models. Because the big problem we have right now is the quality of the data. And that's something that generative AI will not solve. It's as simple as that. And we forget sometimes that garbage in, garbage out is a very sad, but it is the truth. So as I was saying, there is certain use cases that are very common when we talk about generative AI. So we talk about productivity. I don't know, how many of you use ChatGPT or Claude in your daily life? You can raise your hand. Only? Well, the rest of you, you are missing something here. I'm sorry. You should start testing. Why? Because there are certain things that really you are spending a lot of time doing that it doesn't make any sense. That you can create a first draft for certain documents that are not confidential and don't have personal information, especially if you are using an OpenAI free account. Okay, if you are using the company one, there is no problem. But so the second one is chatbots and virtual assistants. And here I have a small use case. One of the customers we have in Spain has a big trouble for rescheduling appointments for elderlies. Usually what you have in the community where I live is you receive an SMS or you receive a WhatsApp. But it seems like the patients that were creating the burden, that is the older people, don't feel comfortable with WhatsApp or SMS, and it was not working. So they basically create a chatbot that calls you with a very human voice in Spanish that is very weird, and make the whole process of a reminder in the method that the oldest needed. Again, is super amazing? No, but it works. And the results are good, and it's improving the number of, is reducing the no-shows in this particular case. Third one, summarizing text. And for those who are doing research, when you need to at least have an idea of the tendencies in several articles, that's a very good starting point. Thinking in patients, we are seeing a lot on how to create materials for patients coming from scientific background, but it's easy to digest. And there are certain use cases that we can talk there. Code generation, and I have an example that I want to offer. It's an offering for all of you. Image generation, I'm completely against this use case for personal reasons because I think it's probably one of the worst, but it works. And especially when we talk generating specific images that can resonate with certain populations could be interesting, and classification of image. So if we translate these to healthcare, what we see is that we have some solutions that can go under the clinical workflows, basically ambient listening. For example, we have done a couple of pilots on having something that listen the conversation between the clinician and the patient, transcribe in different language, Spanish, Catalan, Basque, English, and another that I don't remember, sorry. Translate and is able to create a summary that the clinician can complete with the main data, summarizing information from the medical healthcare record if it's needed, suggesting even if you have the clinical guidelines, for example, based in certain indications can give you the different treatment or next step for this patient. And in this particular case, we did it for primary care. I'm not sure what is the situation in Poland. Where I live in Barcelona, one of the most, let's say, terrible part of the healthcare system is primary care, because the physicians has between 5 and 10 minutes to attend you, and they spend the majority of this time typing information. And they have to, they are the ones that give you the next step with the specialist. If you don't go to primary care, it's very difficult to find this second one. So what we start doing with a group of primary care is basically we ingest all the clinical guidelines that we have in Catalonia. So the clinician, based in a very few indicators of the patient, receive a summary of the recommendation for from each clinical guideline on the next steps or on the treatment. Was not supposed to eliminate it's the clinician decision at the end, but it was easy to keep it updated with the clinical guidelines, and especially for patients that you don't see so much in the daily life. The professionals mentioned that it was really helpful, and they spend less time typing and looking and more time talking with the patient. So the time was the same. It was not a time reduction, it was the quality. And now we are in the second phase of the pilot because we want to understand if the patient has the same feeling that the clinician. We have heard their vision, now we need the patient. So patient engagement is the third one. One of the things that we usually hear is how I can create materials for patients. I have one customer which I'm working with is creating like a Google search, but with validated information from the clinical side. So because they have accepted that patients will go to Google to search for their symptoms and they want to give accurate solutions. Education and research, and this morning we were talking about obesity campaigns, and we are seeing use cases, and we have some pilots on that line, creating a specific content or adjusting content for the different profile of the people who, the audience, sorry, that's the right. And obviously IT that I will not enter, probably because I will bore you to death. But if we go for the next step, that is, well, this is amazing for healthcare, but I work in HTA, I work in market access, how I can use it. So these are some of the examples that if you see a lot of them is reducing boring tasks that you are doing every day. Is something that if you, again, if you are not doing it yet, try it. I mean, be careful, read all the instructions, read the terms and conditions, or ask ChatGPT or Claude to make you a summary, because you need to understand what kind of data you can include, especially if you are using a free application. But try it. I mean, you will be surprised of how many simple things you can apply in your daily life. And for those who are a little bit, let's say, more adventurous, or those who are looking for solutions, applications, or are looking for software or how it works, we have something that is called Party Rock, that is like a simple system to create apps or kind of chatbots and let's say solutions in general with a very low level of coding. Basically, you don't need to know how to program. It's a toy model, meaning that you can try it, you cannot use it in large scale, but it gives you an idea of the things you can create and the kind of solution and how these solutions will look like. And I was talking with Magda that I would love to do a workshop at some point with you, if you want to, on how to use it and testing the ideas that probably you have right now. So there is a couple of things you need to consider. That is important, and I have mentioned several times, if you use free applications, you are paying with your data. Well, that's one of the things. The type of data that you are using really is something that you need to check with your IT, with your governance model in your hospital or healthcare provider or any organization. For those who are using Copilot, for example, it's not the same using Copilot for free that the ones that you have installed in your account. My strong recommendation is use, if your company or your institution is paying for Copilot, always use that one, because the data will not be shared outside, at least as far as I know. It's the competitor, so I don't have all the details. Don't quote me. But that kind of things, it is important. When there is a lot of discussions now, especially in the States, as far as I know, on how these models has been trained. I have to be honest, we don't train models. We collaborate with Anthropic, so I don't have a lot of legal background, but there is a big discussion there that I think is important. And I say this especially for those who are working in papers or in journals or in research. So be careful of not sharing vital information on the free models, at least. Okay. In some cases, I think that it's better to pay and have that security. So things that you need to take into consideration. So Iñaki mentioned it indeed, the majority of them, but the first is the technical challenge. You need a certain level of maturity from the technical perspective in your institution, what we were mentioning about the data, how do you collect the data. In this case, probably having a structured and non-structured data is not a big trouble. Ethical considerations, privacy is a big discussion. We take that into consideration in our pilots, creating stoppers so the clinician cannot include personal information, even though I'm pretty sure that if we were able to audit every question, we will find that they found a loophole to avoid it. And again, your institution, I mean, you have a chatbot that could be amazing, but if you are not able to integrate it in the workflow, in the primary, or in your institution, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's one extra step that will create probably more burden. And this is only one example from the IT perspective. There are many. And with this, I'm not saying this is not a good solution. I just want to be very clear and transparent that it's not as easy as it looks like. And this is my work. I mean, I work for an IT company. There are some examples, and we have some resources that we can share regarding how to do it responsible. These are some of the examples that we can discuss. Obviously, we have a lot of examples in the States using also information from the economical perspective to identify patterns in patients, identify areas that could be improved. And just to summarize, the three main use cases is documentation, scribe efficiency, meaning summary, identifying patterns in text, and creating patient-friendly consultation recaps. The fact that you can create this summary really helps. Some of the basics that we mentioned, data probably is the most important one. And considering that I don't have any more time, I will go for the last one. And you have here my details. And I think I was 1 minute over, sorry.
Thank you very much, Anaïs. Any questions to Anaïs? Mirosław?
Hello. I got one question, maybe it's too specific, but there was a use case for ETL, extra transform load. Can you give example for this one?
Probably I'm not the best person to go deep. I can give you some details and I can forward you the whole use case because it's not the one I'm more familiar with. To be too
technical for this. That's fine. Thank you.
I also assume you want the technical details. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Magda Wadysiuk, I have a question regarding what is your opinion from the, we can say, industry perspective? Of course, different industry than we have in healthcare, but also still it's a new one. It's coming to healthcare. How you see that, how the public side, or maybe not maybe public side, but health service providers, they are prepared for changes regarding the introduction of AI or any kind of machine learning from your experience?
I think there is different levels and there is different specialities. For example, radiologists that has been using artificial intelligence for analyzing data for quite a time has a very high level of maturity and they feel more or less comfortable even with the more advanced application on analyzing image. Same in other similar specialities. There are others that are completely against. That's the case of pathologists because their value, their expertise is what makes them different, and they are still in the process of getting familiar with the technology. There are specialties in the middle. Cardiology, oncology are something a little bit in the middle if you see it from the specialty perspective. If we go for the maturity of the organizations, it really depends. In general, what I see is that hospitals need to improve the data governance and the communication between the IT department and the specialties. Because usually IT is the people that they don't want to speak with, and IT doesn't want to speak with the rest of the hospital either. And that is creating a big trouble. We see the beginning of new figures. I was mentioning someone before. I have a lot of hospitals that has biomedical informatic person in the department, basically like a translator between IT and the department. We are starting to see hospitals that are identifying or they are starting this digital transformation process, starting with the data foundation, meaning how this will work, what is the data governance model. That is something that we haven't seen in the last couple of years. Say that, there is a lot of work to do. There is a lack of standards in many areas. There is a lot of challenge from the IT perspective. For example, in imaging, you have a simple standard, everything is DICOM. In pathology, they don't have a standard. And in genomics, we are not even trying to have a standard. I mean, we are not even discussing have a standard. So there is a lot of work to do. I'm usually a very positive person, and I can tell that I have been working in healthcare for a little bit more of 15 years, and I have seen an impressive change. So I'm positive about the future, but it will require time and effort, change management. That probably is the hardest part.
Okay, thank you very much for your insight.
And now on for the next presentation, Joanna Turkiewicz. She works in the National Cancer Institute. So the National Cancer Institute, she will be talking about AI. So not about cancer care, but about AI. Yes, I do work in the Warsaw National Cancer Institute. I am not a doctor, I am an economist. So I will be giving you the perspective of a user. So and not a theorist. So my presentation will be less technical. AI in the development of science. A lot is happening here. I am working in the Cancer Institute, and I work with scientific publications about disseminating results of studies. And this is the context in which I'd like to present my presentation. When it comes to the plan for my presentation, I developed this pathway of how I see the process of publishing articles. As you can see, it doesn't end in actually publishing the article, the paper. It ends with promoting the results, because we don't want just to publish, we want people to know that we published and what we published. And AI can also be helpful here, but I will talk about this in a moment. I will also have a look at ethical aspects related to quality, questions of employment, so the changing role of the scientist, and a few words about the future. I would like to thank all the speakers before me. My plan was to define AI, but this has already been covered. So I'm sure you can find the definition in the dictionary, but you can also simply ask AI how it would define itself. This is something which you will probably be able to remember. The fact that AI is supposed to simulate something that human intelligence is able to do. One of the more important things that differs us from AI, that characterizes AI, is that there is the ability to learn. I'm really happy that Anaïs encouraged you to use AI and chat. My position is similar. I will also encourage you to do so. If some information, technical information, was also mentioned in the previous presentations, I will be giving you the perspective of a simple user, so that this might seem to you to be rather user-friendly. Let me give you an example of how artificial intelligence was learning on my example. I asked AI So I downloaded an article drawn up in English, and I asked for a summary, an abstract, and for AI to choose the most important information. I wrote the prompt in Polish. Because I wanted to use it for workshops that would also be held in Polish, and AI responded in English. I asked AI to translate it, and it did. And when I was asking for the next abstract based on the next paper, the response this time was automatically done in Polish. So the tool, the AI tool, remembered that I wanted a Polish abstract. This is a simple example that indicates that AI, if you learn how to use it and it learns how to cooperate with you, this will be something that will respond to your individual needs. I hope that you managed to see at least one video promoting this conference, which used avatars. We wrote that AI was used to promote it because all texts that were generated and that were said by the avatar were generated with AI. Obviously, we did teach AI what we wanted, what we need, and we controlled it, the results, but yet it was AI generated. And subsequent posts, subsequent materials were created much quicker because AI would learn. When it comes to the impact of AI on the entire process of scientific research process, I will present it step by step. When it comes to developing the studies, analyzing literature is the time-consuming part. If you do write papers, if you do write scientific papers or some other reports, often you carry out reviews of what has already been done and published. For that, you can successfully use AI. There are tools which give you a good overview and allows you to compare texts. For example, this allows you, let's say, if you were to look for articles on a specific subject, for example, breast cancer, when you search for those articles, you can also ask AI to compare abstracts or compare the methodology part. You can also ask specific questions, for example, what do you find most interesting in these articles, or even more detailed questions. For example, find specific highlights. Also, you can ask AI to categorize literature. You can easily filter using specific subjects. When it comes to creating, you can ask it to help you create research questions. AI obviously can be helpful, but you have to verify it at every stage. How you ask the question, how you formulate the question is the key to success. When it comes to research tools, you can also find answers in the AI-generated response. Obviously, you can also use validated questionnaires, which are already available. But sometimes you don't need a validated survey, and therefore AI can help generate suggestions for questionnaire questions. You can also tailor it to the specific respondent. You can ask that, let's say, questions are generated with senior citizens in mind, or to focus on people with no medical background. Or we want the questions to be understandable to 9-year-olds. So you can indicate specific prompts, which might seem a bit trivial or funny, but I think that you'll be surprised by how tailored and how apt the results will be. I hope I will encourage you to give it a try. We have a lot of automation when it comes to carrying out specific questionnaires. So if we've got an online questionnaire and we've marked that all questions are mandatory, then it is impossible to skip a question. If you give respondents printouts, people can skip some questions, and then also when data is entered manually, there is also a risk of error. This also speeds up data processing. AI can also use open sources. It can, for example, use social media and observe user behavior. It also analyzes images as well as video recordings and audio recordings. So if you wanted a summary of today's session and didn't want to listen to the entire session, you could upload this video to AI and ask for a summary. Another topic, another stage, analyzing and interpreting results. It does the same thing as humans, but on a larger scale. It can also use algorithms to identify correlations, discovering less obvious correlations. The analysis tends to be more detailed, more precise. Visualizations are possible, so we can do things we do manually, however, more precisely and in a faster manner. I will talk about quality at the end. When it comes to publications, this is interesting, because here automatization speeds up not just literature reviews, but also AI helps create abstracts. It also edits the quality, improves the quality of the text, edits the text. It will correct your grammar, it will correct your language. It will improve consistency of the language that you use. It will help pick up any typos or errors. It can also translate or proofread texts. One more aspect, I hope you use this as well. I hope that you promote the results of your work. It would be good to think about what title you want to choose for your paper. If you can't come up with anything smart, you can ask ChatGPT to make suggestions. Please, can you suggest 10 different topics? I always ask for at least 10 so that I can something to choose from. 10 topics that could be interesting for, and here you enter your target group. The more precise the target group, the more precise definition of the target group, the better results you get. It also helps fit to user preference using the analysis of online behavior. If we want to know how people, our users behave online, AI will help you with that. Apart from topics, titles, also keywords should be underlined. So keywords, if we use the right keywords, we will be cited, will be found and cited more often. We can also ask AI for suggestions for keywords who would help us promote the results of our work. This does not require a lot of effort on our part. Also in terms of optimization, like SEO, so search engine optimization, there are companies who specialize this, and I think that in the academia we don't spend enough time on promoting the results of our work, but AI can be very helpful also in this regard. In terms of other topics, ethical aspects of authorship, of copyrights. AI does not have legal personality, just its creators. Many journals ask, upon acceptance of a paper, did you use AI when developing your paper? I recommend being honest about it. As mentioned in the previous panel, recommendations are only being developed, but I encourage you to protect your data. So if you want to upload your data to AI tools, don't use free of charge accounts, use premium accounts, and do read terms of use. This is my recommendation. When it comes to social perception and social approval, I think at this stage we are still wondering about this. If I were to ask how much is 135 times 135, what would you do? I can bet that you will take out your calculators and you will be calculating if you want to actually give me an answer. But no one will think of whether it's ethical that you just used a tool to make the calculation instead of doing the calculation in your head. It might be controversial, but this is the direction we are headed at. Some people have already come to terms with AI, some are still struggling. But I think that thinking about ethical aspects will be less prominent, so to speak. It will not be the main aspect. When it comes to the quality and credibility of studies, as already mentioned by other speakers, obviously we have to make sure that the data that we upload is credible. But please bear in mind that AI can lie. I think Iñaki mentioned that it will not refuse you. It won't tell you, I don't know the answer. It will make up the answer. I asked it to make suggestions on what questions I can use in a survey so that I have questions based on resources. It came up with a questionnaire like this. There was an entire footnote. I took that footnote and I can't find it anywhere. I was quite angry with it. I will ask it, where did he find it? I asked him where I can find the article from the footnote, and he said, oh, my apologies, I just made it up. I made the whole article up. That was some time ago. I think that knowledge about the fact that ChatGPT tends to lie, that's common knowledge. But at that point, I was a bit shocked because it all looked very credible. So, credibility of what AI offers us as a result. My suggestion is that it's a black box. We don't really know what algorithm is inside. Double check in a different source. As in the case of other topics, just double check AI in a different AI tool or in other sources, if it's possible. Do not take it at face value. Do not trust it completely. And it's really good to find a balance between automation and human control. You should keep in mind that our human factor, our human role in controlling the results that we receive is very important. When it comes to employment in research, roles are evolving. Some professions are no longer there or are becoming obsolete. I think we should be optimistic because there is a lot of tasks which we do not enjoy doing, which are not sexy, as Anaïs said. They are tiresome, they are boring. There's a lot of bureaucratic tasks, a lot of paperwork, administrative issues, and in this area AI can simply replace us, do it faster and maybe even better. I wouldn't be afraid of that. So routine tasks, we will have less of that. I think that our efficiency as researchers will increase. I think it's worth to follow what's happening in this area, because currently we have two main tools right now that we know, but there's also a lot of other tools, a multitude of tools for different purposes. So if you wanted to generate a set of slides, presentation slides, based on a Word document, there are tools who will automatically generate your PowerPoint presentation. But the question, which to use? Which one will make the best slide deck? If you ask Google, I'm looking for a tool to generate presentations based on a Word document. Remember, not necessarily the first results are the best ones. Please be cautious of it. I think that when it comes to employment, we've covered the most important things. And now just a few reflections regarding the future of AI. I think that those research processes will become much more fast. Thanks to the use of AI, I hope reasonably, analysis will be possible quicker. We'll have challenges, for example, regarding data analysis and ethical issues. We are often afraid of change. Obviously, there's this whole area of change management. Here we are talking about a major change. I think that AI has a huge potential in science, in scientific research, and I think it would be good to be open-minded and reasonable about it at the same time. With regard to promotion, I would like to encourage you to one thing. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to promote any of your work using a video abstract. If it's not necessary, polls rarely do that. But I would like to be honest with you, currently we have such great technical possibilities. You don't need to record your own video. At the beginning of the symposium, you saw Magda in a video which was generated only based on its photo. If you have a good photo shoot, you only need a photo, not even a video. Obviously, your mouth looks a bit different when talk, but I would like to show you 20 seconds of a video based on the, that was generated using my photo.
Od projektowania przez analizę danych, aż po publikowanie i promowanie wyników. Moja prezentacja pokazywała, jak sztuczna inteligencja optymalizuje procesy badawcze, zwiększa efektywność oraz umożliwia lepsze zrozumienie i wykorzystanie wyników badań.
You can see that the voice wasn't well adjusted to the mouth movements. I think that is the problem of recording. So you can either clone your own voice and then feed it with a transcript, or you can feed it with a recording of your voice. You can use a dictaphone, a voice recorder. If you use a voice recorder, then the result sounds more natural. If you feed a text transcript to a robot, then it will sound a little bit less natural because there won't be any pauses, any hesitation. So voice recordings fed to the system will give you a more natural result. But when you see how I use my jaw when talking, it's not the same as in this video. But if I had a video of me talking and fed that into the system, then I could attach it for the process, and AI would know what my mimics is, how I use my mouth when I pronounce specific sounds. So if you want to go more advanced, just record a short video of yourself. Depending on the tool, probably between 30 seconds and 2 minutes would be sufficient. But if you don't want to do a recording, you don't need to. But even on the basis of a good photo shoot, you can create such avatars. And I encourage you to do it. I'm not showing this just as a gadget. Video is currently the content. If you're into promotion and marketing, video is the most clickable form of promotion of advertisement. So if you want to promote your achievements effectively, I wholeheartedly recommend looking into this. This is not very advanced. You don't need advanced skills. I am not an IT expert. My background is social sciences. So anyone could do it. And now, should we use it or shouldn't? I was wondering whether to ask you, should we or shouldn't we use AI? Because I thought there were 3 possible ways. Some people are afraid of AI, they refuse to use it. They consider it evil or they try to ignore it. Then there are some people who use it and pretend not to use it, so they take full glory for the creations, and some people use it and speak loudly about it. So I think that AI will be intruding on our lives so much that it will be impossible not to use AI. I recommend to you, and I wish you, to be bold and to be reasonable. So be bold about trying out new things. Maybe you could have an account with a Copilot or a ChatGPT. Give it a try. Give it a test run. You will be surprised by how much your lives can be made easy. But please be reasonable about using it, especially when it comes to using about data protection, about copyright. Be sure that when you sign yourselves as authors of a paper, be honest about authorship. The first version of the picture was a male scientist. Then I asked for a female scientist, and she was too young. And the third picture that was generated for me by AI was this lady. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them myself or using AI.
You have questions to Asia? No, it's... No, this is the original. I could make a lighter version. I didn't think that I had to write up my presentation. That's exactly the product of my AI software. So, what is the acceptance of the scientific paper if you say that you made it with the use of AI technology? I don't have a lot of experience in that area, but I sent a motivation letter as a request to join the conference, an elite conference, and the whole motivation letter was produced by ChatGPT, and I signed that the letter was produced with AI. I don't know what kind of wording I used, but I was accepted as the participant of the conference. The approach today is that it's widespread, and that is better to declare openly I used it to produce the material. I used it to produce the content. And I was told that many PhD theses or grant requests were produced with AI.
On that sense, it's very interesting because there are two cases that are very well recognized. First, there is a paper that basically includes in the first paragraph the classical answer from ChatGPT. Somehow this went through the reviewers, everything, and was published. And that happened, I think, like 6 months ago. It was a big crisis in the scientific community, especially because it's a review paper. So, and the second one, I'm not sure if it's yet published, but they are doing a study to see how much you can increase the acceptance based in the tools you are using, in this case, generative AI. The background is they want to measure how much non-native speaker articles improve in the acceptance when you use generative AI. I'm waiting for the results as non-native speaker, and I can imagine that will increase. Yeah.
Jeszcze 15 lat temu, jak byłem na studiach doktoranckich, nasz prowadzący
15 years ago, I was a PhD student, and our IT teacher showed us an abstract generator. And actually, what we got was absolutely nonsense. It was just a simple generator. You chose nice words, and the generator put them together, and it was no sense. And then we sent some abstracts to conferences, and some of them were accepted. So even 15 years ago, it was frightening. Nobody reviewed them. And now we have generative AI and deep fake. So who will be able to tell what is true and what is not true, especially that we are flooded by what is false, by inaccurate information. So who will be skillful enough to tell the difference between the illusion and the reality? Yeah, we have a tool to check whether the content was generated by the AI or not. And there was a text produced in my text. There was a text produced based on my prompt, and 90% of that was generated by ChatGPT. Then I put it into Word, and I used the tool to check whether this was written by human hand or by technology. The answer was that in 40% there is a chance that artificial intelligence may be involved. So it was quite enigmatic as a reply. Why almost the whole text? And 90% was actually produced by AI. So let's hope that we will have more accurate verification tools. So it's not easy to find a good AI detector. Thank you very much, Asha. Let us move to the last presentation. That will be mine. I asked Chat how to introduce myself, and he told me just say that you are an HTA consultant and that you work every day on improvement of quality. And everybody will understand what you do in your life. You know, my mother is unable to understand what I do in my life. That's why I asked ChatGPT for a short introduction of myself. We live in a world where we are flooded with information, there's plenty of data around. And in the area of healthcare and HTA, we have this buzzword RWE. Is it a curse, a liability, or an asset? I don't know, but RWE needs to be taken into consideration. We, in a way, see that there are more and more papers published on RWE. Also in the Polish scientific community. RWE Poland National Health Fund used keywords to search in different search engines, and I didn't find anything in Polish internet, and it was actually surprising. I thought I could find more, and I know that some studies have already been published based on RWE, and these studies are available, but the search engine didn't find them. We have the medical fund in Poland, and the medicine fund or the medical fund has a list of drugs, and according to the code of drugs, some data is collected. And at the end of the reimbursement term, we can retrieve the data, and the HTA agency can use the data. For instance, 3 have already been assessed this way, 1 to treat cancer, and the other SMA, and 1 more in colon cancer. So the HTA agency used that data, then compared that with existing scientific publication, and the agency did a sort of a naive comparison between literature and real world evidence. My goal would be to present you RWE from a sort of scientific perspective. What would happen if we had accurate, reliable data, and what are the pitfalls of using RWE in analysis? There are some of them. RWD and RWE, so real world data, there are plenty of them, and then they're transformed into real world evidence to be used by patients, industry, regulators, payers, providers, all of that, to know what is going on, to invent new drugs, to improve the quality of healthcare. At the beginning of the production of our HTA report, there was no such data available. It was not used, collected, published. There were only randomized studies. But the world has been changing. Even regulators in different countries have spotted that change, both in Europe and in North America. And they realized that real world evidence exists and can be used, and now this evidence is admitted in the registration process, and the status of the data has changed. Have a look at this data from FDA. In many FDA-approved new drugs and biologic license applications, real-world evidence is actually taken into consideration, whether in a pre-approval stage or then in leaflets. So as you see, the use of real-world evidence is widespread. But just have a look at any classical clinical trial. We've got the control group and an experimental group, and we want to spot the differences, and we want to find whether the differences are due to specific health technology. That, for instance, in randomized studies, thanks to randomization, so the random selection of patients to 2 groups, we reduce any bias. So it's randomization, hiding code, or patient and doctor or evaluator actually do not know anything about the product, and this is to avoid any bias. So in order to improve reliability of the study, we use these techniques, and with that we get reliable data. And this is the internal reliability. And outside of that, you have external reliability. In other words, whether these findings that we have in the study can be translated into real-life practice. We have one group of patients in our study and then another group in real life. And that's what we see here. In cardiology, in clinical studies, we had younger patients, and in real life, afterwards, the patients were much older. So that's the question of transposition of results from one group to another. This is the first pitfall, a sort of pitfall embedded in the analysis of data. So how the data in clinical practice can be translated or compared to data from randomized or real-life data. Don't forget, we have two criteria, efficacy and effectiveness, the two criteria. So the efficacy of the experimentation and the effectiveness in real life. With both, we can confirm whether this medical technology that we are testing works or not. As I've said, we have randomized clinical studies, so that's a question of design, conduct, analysis of results. At each stage, you try to reduce the role of any skewing factors. Then you have non-experimental studies, observational studies, and there you have a much higher number of variables which enter into play. So the recommendations or the verification analysis presented by the HTA analysis say randomized study are great, and actually our own Reimbursement Act says you need to have a head-to-head clinical study with a comparator. And if you have only an observational study or indirect comparison study, you are punished. It's not good for the drug. But you know, it's not a holy grail, the randomized study. They may be even less reliable. It's easy to have a poor randomized study. But if you have a large-scale, well-designed observational study, you will get better results. Or you can just review the registers for prosthetics, for knee joint repair surgeries. You can cover all the patients which underwent this procedure. And it's much more reliable than a randomized study. So beware, it's about quality of the study. What are the skewing factors or interfering factors? In experimental studies, we can do the pairing or restriction or randomization at the stage of study design. And then when we move to statistical analysis, we can do the multi-criterial analysis or multi-tier analysis. If you use real-world evidence, and we have a database, and the database is supposed to be used to compare two specific interventions or health technologies, both groups should be comparable, just to be sure that the effects are caused by one single medical intervention. Pairing, for instance. Can you pair patients like that? Here I take one patient, and then in the other group I will take another patient that seems to be similar, But if you do it manually, like ad hoc selection, there is a higher risk that I will be biased, because I will choose patients with better results, or people of specific ethnicity, or people with a very specific profile. So the outcome of the analysis will be skewed as well. And you have statistical tools to help you do the right pairing, to help you do this analysis. And that will be also the topic of my presentation. Just be aware, when you analyze large corpora of data, you can still use such statistical tools. It's a nice example. Real-world evidence is produced based on real-world data, and this is to improve decision-making, to treat patients, or improve the impact of the technology. But there are plenty of purposes that can be used here. We had one colleague from a pharma company. Now he works for the National Health Fund. A new unit was created at the National Health Fund to analyze data. And I do hope that this will result in the improvement of healthcare services. We do hope that thanks to data analysis, both the standing of the payer will improve and the quality of care will improve, and that the National Health Fund will use this analysis to improve both access to healthcare and the quality of medical treatment. It's hard to move between slides. These are the definitions that you know, the differences between real-world data and real-world evidence. In the first case, you have just data. In the other case, you have clinical evidence based on the processed real-world data. Here you see a summary of guidelines produced all around the world. Here you see the guidelines issued by the Canadian Health Technology Assessment Agency. So you've got the split between the elements of the process and then the description of action. I will not go into detail. Instead, I will move to specific methods to be used in the analysis of large data corpora. Let me start with propensity score matching. The PSM is used when you have a large corpora of data, and you can generate a propensity score for each patient, and with that you can find similar patients. And you usually calculate a probability, relative probability, labeled PS, or propensity score. And you can do it through pairing, weighing, stratification. But in general, similar patients will be split into two groups. So we have one patient on one medication and the other patient on another medication, but have the similar propensity score, considering all the compounding factors, weight, age, comorbidities. So thanks to this linear regression, actually I've read today something about machine learning, and I know that the PSM can be based on machine learning. And with that you can determine a relative probability, and based on this relative probability you can pair the patient. So you have one patient and the other patient with all bias factors excluded. Then you can validate or condition the patients? Do you need ideally the same patients, or maybe you accept some differences with high level of certainty? You will exclude a lot of patients, and anyway your data will be biased. So the ideal would be to strike the right balance and to find the data which is meaningful with a range of tolerance for differences. And at the end, you will just make calculations and see your result. Here you see the second method, inverse probability of treatment weighting, IPTW, the second of two basic methods to be used to analyze large sets of data. With both methods, you can eliminate the impact of confounding factors or skewing factors. And with that, you have two cohorts, and for each you use a different health technology, and with that you have a sort of a pseudo randomized study. It's true this is not a pure randomization effect that you get, but still you may have one cohort with patients after the second line of therapy and the other one after the third or fourth line therapy, and then you have two cohorts with patients with different health outcomes, and that's why you can apply a different health assessment. And I think that all the people involved in data analysis should know the methods, and they will improve the reliability of data and findings, and then will foster better decision making. All data processing operations are intended to support the decision on reimbursement, decision on financing. See here a classic example, lung cancer, with two groups of patients treated with two different drugs, an observation study, and at some point researchers realized that the cohorts were actually very diversified, and thanks to propensity score and the algorithm of action, they redesigned the cohorts. So you see the criteria that they took into account. I know I have to finish, I'm almost close to the end. And the calculations on the propensity score for every patients were compared. Several types of analyses were conducted, and that was the outcome. The HR, the relative difference between two interventions were measured. On the left you see unweighted score, and on the right weighted score. That is after the application of the propensity score. Look at the curves, they do differ. And then you can use the same for the economic analysis, even if the HR, so this relative difference, is simply discrepant, but not very discrepant in absolute values. There still are the factors which may count for economic analysis. So the correct analysis counts. So avoid naive comparisons. Well, naive comparisons can work as well. It's not that they should be discarded once for all, but every time just add all the limitations that are coming to play in such comparisons. Do not forget that in parallel you have tools, AI-based or machine learning-based tools, to help you improve the quality of your analysis. Thank you very much.
I've applied sufficient stress on Robert. Please bear with us. I know we are over time. I know some people are still online. I would like to extend my thanks to everyone who stayed until the very end, both here physically and online. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. I hope that next year we will meet again and that next year it will be as interesting as today. Thank you to all the speakers, both Polish and from abroad. Thank you for being so involved. And thank you for the fruitful, interesting discussions. Thank you for everything, and we invite you for next year.